Hello everybody from Tallinn. I would like to welcome you to the Estonian-Norwegian offshore wind collaboration event organized by the Estonian Investment Agency, who is Norwegian Embassy in Estonia, Norwegian Energy Partners and Estonian Wind Association. My name is Neeme Raud. I'm a journalist here in Estonia and I'll be moderating the webinar. Today, when greater emphasis than ever is placed on the importance of transitioning to green energy sources, lowering CO2 emissions and carbon neutrality, Estonia is on the brink of fundamental energy transition, where wind energy will be playing a central role. That is the basis of our discussions here today. To open our webinar, here is Ms. Berit Eikeland, Ambassador of Norway in Estonia.
Good morning to all of you from the Norwegian Embassy in Tallinn, and welcome to this first webinar on Estonian-Norwegian offshore wind cooperation. This webinar is part of our celebrations of the 100th anniversary of the diplomatic relationship between Estonia and Norway. Let me thank Invest Estonia and Merike Kasveld in particular for making this webinar possible. Energy has always played an important part of Norway's history. Modern Norway was built and industrialized when we started to utilize rivers and waterfalls to produce electricity. Hydropower is still important in the Norwegian energy mix, and Norway is the biggest producer of hydropower in Europe. But the next years, we will see a green shift of our economies. Offshore wind will be a driving force. According to the EU, there will be a huge increase in the production capacity from offshore wind the next 30 years. We want to build on the Norwegian technology and competence in our oil and gas companies and in our supply industry. The development of offshore wind in Norway is now entering a new area. We are now laying down the ground to facilitate large-scale development of offshore wind in Norwegian waters. This is the time to build partnership with our close friend Estonia. So let me welcome Estonian companies to Norway and Norwegian companies to Estonia. We have always been a good match. Let us lead the way to a green future. Thank you.
Ms. Berit Eikeland, Ambassador of Norway in Estonia, thank you very much. And our second speaker is Mr. Lauri, Bambus, Ambassador of Estonia in Norway.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, thank you very much indeed for inviting me to attend today's seminar. As an Estonian ambassador to Norway, I am very delighted to celebrate the Estonian-Norwegian diplomatic relations anniversary. As exactly 100 years ago, we established the diplomatic relations between our countries. Although, of course, our people and countries have had much longer history, and people as living on the coastlines, we know what does it mean to live with nature, wind and sea. And this year, Estonia aspired also to become the observer to the Arctic Council. It was also carried by our wish to cooperate closer to the Nordic countries and to the Arctic countries, and also to celebrate the cooperation between our scientists, our countries' governments. Estonian aspiration to become observer at the Arctic Council will remain, as this year there was no consensus between the countries to take new observers. And it means that our cooperation will continue also in the sector of energy. So far, the main raw material used in the Estonia's energy sector has been, and still is, carbon-intensive oil shale. In 2018, oil shale accounts for 72% of the country's total energy supply and as much as 76% of Estonia's electricity production. Estonia, despite relying on burning oil shale, has decided to embark on a difficult energy transition and fully supports the ambitious EU climate policy. The European Union sets the direction for member states' energy policies and combating climate change. Estonia implements these assumptions primarily as part of its National Energy Sector Development Plan for 2030 and based on its general principles of Estonia's climate policy until 2050. We want to use this climate change transition to develop our high-tech industry and increase green investments. We are pleased to see these interests of other partners also in our region. We are pleased that our cooperation in Nordic-Baltic formats, which means that Estonia fully cooperate with our Latvian Lithuanian colleagues on south, but also with our Nordic colleagues, and particularly today with Norway. Today, on today's seminar, we have several Estonian companies who are very much interested in the Green Deal and green technologies. As one of the Port of Tallinn, in order to reduce the ecological footprint of electricity consumption, has decided to purge the electricity produced only in Estonia and purge renewable energy. This will reduce a total of amount 7,000 tons of CO2 emissions annually, and it is a lot. This year we are celebrating also the 30th anniversary of regaining the Estonian independence. This is another milestone, as exactly from the 90s we are taking the count from which we would like to reduce the emission of our gas. The long-term target of Estonia is exactly to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases by 2050 by 80% in comparison with emission levels of 1990. The close cooperation with Nordic countries and Norwegian companies gives us very good sample, as it's always good to learn from the best. Norwegian white paper, Energy to Work, presented to the Parliament last week, gives the long-term wealth creation of Norwegian energy resources. It shows Norway's will to be further developed through new investments inter alia in offshore wind. Dear friends, I wish everyone a productive day today, a mutually beneficial contacts. The key to success is in cooperation. Through centuries, and particularly last decades, has shown that Estonia and Norway are like-minded and trustful partners. Our aim is to improve the ecological situation, and I believe that by investing to the green technology, renewable energy, and offshore wind, we could become a good example for the rest of the world. Therefore, dear friends, I wish you a very good day, and I'm looking forward to have good meeting.
Ambassador Bambus, thank you. Next, we will take a closer look at our two nations' common green visions. Mr. Andres Sutt, Estonian Minister of Foreign Trade and Information Technology, will open this discussion.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to talk about green transition with you today. We seize an amazing possibility to jointly reflect on the opportunities we have ahead. As you all know, Europe wants to become the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. This is an ambitious goal, and we truly need to combine our efforts in order to make our economies more green, sustainable, and digital. The European Green Deal calls for a 55% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. Estonia has even more ambitious goals, and our national target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions is 70% by 2030. This is one of the most ambitious in the EU. Meeting new climate targets also means a complete restructuring of the energy sector, and international cooperation and the private sector have an important role to play in this. But we must not forget that Green Deal is not only a climate protection strategy. It is also our growth strategy, and our ambitious energy and climate objectives are both an economic and a green opportunity. In 10 years' time, half of our energy consumption must come from renewable energy sources, and we see wind energy as the key solution. Promoting offshore wind energy and construction of hybrid offshore projects are essential to reach the EU's higher energy and climate targets. And these offshore projects also give us perfect opportunities for innovation and cooperation. For example, last fall, we signed a Memorandum of Understanding with Latvia, which is aimed at the development of an offshore wind farm by the two states. The size of a planned wind farm is up to 1,000 megawatts, which is up to 20% of the combined power consumption of the two countries. This was the first such an agreement in the region, pioneering concept of hybrid offshore grid, connecting different markets, and enabling development of suitable offshore production sites. Good neighbors joining forces in major energy projects is both reasonable and also cost efficient. These kind of joint projects make it possible to attract investments in offshore wind farms to the region and makes connecting to the grid more affordable for others also. Given Norway's in-depth knowledge of renewable energy and experience, Estonia would certainly have a lot to learn from you. I hope Estonian and Norwegian companies will find common grounds today and will be able to share their services and know-how with each other. I look forward to future cooperation in the green transition of Estonia and Norway and making our planet a cleaner and healthier place to live. Thank you.
Minister Sutt, thank you very much for laying out these ambitious plans for Estonia's green transition. Our next speaker is from Norway, Ms. Neeme Raud, the Minister of Petroleum and Energy, and she will speak about the lessons learned in the Norwegian green transition.
Good morning, or should I maybe say, tere hommikust. What you are discussing in today's conference is about finding solutions to combat climate challenge. It is also about business, jobs, industrial activity, and value creation, and not least, an opportunity for increased bilateral cooperation between Norway and Estonia. Offshore wind is already an industrial adventure. However, the potential for further growth is immense. The green shift is no longer an abstract term. It's taking place right now before our eyes, and offshore wind is an important driving force in this shift. The development of offshore wind in Norway is now entering a new era. We recently presented our government white paper on the long-term value creation from Norwegian energy resources, and naturally, offshore wind has a prominent part in this paper. We are now setting the framework to enable large-scale development of offshore wind in Norwegian waters. And this will contribute to the energy transition we need, and at the same time create jobs, activity, and new innovations. In the years to come, we want the industry to keep up the momentum, to cut costs, and explore global opportunities. And that is exactly what our policies aim for. And with that, I wish you the best of luck with today's conference and the future cooperation between our two great countries, a cooperation full of energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Raud. Now, key stakeholders in the public and private sectors and their visions on how we can go green together. Mr. Timo Tatar is Deputy Secretary General for Energy at the Ministry of Economic Affairs here in Estonia.
My name is Timo Tatar. I'm a Deputy Secretary General for Energy and Mineral Resources from Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications. And it is really honored to be here and present my views about offshore wind and Estonia. This is indeed a promising sector where Estonia sees a great potential. But first of all, to energy and climate. As an EU nation, we have become climate neutral by 20. And of course, for that, we have to speed up the green energy transition and renewable energy production. According to our coalition agreement from earlier this year, we have decided to stop investing into new fossil fuel production when it comes to government companies. And we have also made decision to stop producing oil shale for electricity by 2035 at the latest, and also stop producing oil by 2040 from now until 2050. And there are important checkpoints at the middle. And beside that, we have also decided to shift entire energy consumption of Estonian public sector to renewable energy, and using for that a instrument called PPA, Power Purchase Agreement, which is usually used in a corporate business, but we intend to use for public sector. And when it comes to our targets, then our target for greenhouse gas reduction is 70% reduction by 2030, which is way beyond the newly proposed EU overall target of 55. And we are moving with a quite good pace towards that target. Last year and the year before, Estonian energy sector greenhouse gas reductions were the highest in EU. So we are taking the green transition seriously. And obviously part of it is our energy sector emissions, but maybe even the more harder part is to build up a new generation, new future-proof generation, which will replace the outgoing fossil production. And for us, definitely such production is wind, both onshore and offshore. We see that the next 10 years, the focus will be, when it comes to achieving our targets, onshore wind, but definitely beyond 2030, we have to go offshore, and we are making already today preparations to be ready to do this offshore development. And as you can see, there are a lot of activities already happening in Estonian offshore territories. By the way, the territory is quite large. It is roughly 9% of the Baltic Sea overall territories, meaning that there is great potential for offshore in Estonia, which we intend to use. We are right now in a final phase of maritime special planning, which will be hopefully approved by Parliament early next year. And besides that, there are already quite many project developers developing their offshore projects. Altogether, the potential for offshore in Estonia is estimated to be 7 gigawatts. And we intend to follow some key principles when it comes to offshore. Definitely one is transparency. The other is that we are open for investments, for investors. We see the offshore development definitely not as only as a energy production. We see that as a potential to build up an entire value chain for offshore, meaning shipyards, building ships, meaning ports, meaning heavy industry. So we see that if the offshore wind development takes off in the right way, there is definitely a potential for entire value chain in Estonia. Another interesting project we are developing jointly with our Latvian colleagues is Estonian-Latvian joint hybrid offshore wind project called ELWIND. This is a somewhat new solution for Baltic Sea, although it is a model which is being used in North Sea. So we are piloting a cross-border hybrid project concept in Estonia with expected capacity from 700,000 megawatts. And the plan is to conduct all the necessary studies to also build a grid connection with all necessary licensing and put it on the auction for projectors to join and build a offshore wind farm. The auction is planned to be taken place in 25-26, and the park will become operational by 2030. An important element of this project is a hybrid network. We intend, together with the TSOs, to build a interconnection between Estonia and Latvia, crossing that park and also providing opportunities to join for other projects nearby. This is definitely the way how we see that the small countries like Estonia and Latvia, but also in the future other countries, can benefit of offshore wind development, which tends to be a bit more capital intensive than onshore. But this way, doing most expensive elements like interconnections jointly, sharing costs with the DSOs, because such interconnections still half of the time work as an interconnection when there is no wind, and the rest of the time it is a interconnection which is providing electricity from offshore. In this way, we will keep the costs lower and the projects more affordable. And of course, ELWIND is our project in our corner of Baltic Sea, but we definitely see that looking at the future, the Baltic Sea wind development should be in a similar manner, that there will be a Baltic Sea offshore grid connecting different energy hubs at the sea and delivering the electricity produced offshore directly to the areas where the deficit is the biggest at given moment. Because as we know, if we transmit the offshore electricity through onshore cables, then we will create bottlenecks onshore, which are afterwards more difficult to repair, to upgrade, and we will not have the full potential of offshore energy at places where it's needed most. And definitely the Baltic offshore grid is not an easy task. It's not a cheap task, and it's not a quick solution. It's definitely a long journey, which we are just beginning with our DSOs. And the first step over here is to our DSOs to come together to make up a plan where the connection should be, how to connect the most promising sites, how to share costs, how to decide where to start, how much capital does it take, and what is the realistic time frame. This is what we are expecting for the DSOs, and I'm glad that DSOs are working together to make this project viable. To conclude, I see that there is a lot of potential for offshore, both in Estonia but also in Baltic Sea, and definitely Norwegian investors are welcome to join those interesting developments. Right now, there is opportunity to hop on board to different offshore developments in Estonian waters. And of course, the other possibility is to wait a bit and join the journey once the ELWIND project enters to the auction phase in 25-26. So different options are available. we are open for new investors. And I know that there have been already in the past quite successful investments from Norway to Estonian renewable energy. And we are welcome to host additional new foreign investments from Norway. Thank you. This is all from my side. I hope the presentation was interesting, and I wish you interesting discussions.
Thank you very much, Timo Tatar, Deputy Secretary General for Energy at the Ministry of Economic Affairs in Estonia. And now I invite to the stage Mr. Aavo Kärmas, the board chairman of the Estonian Wind Power Association, who will present us a vision on how to accelerate the development of wind power here in Estonia, and also point to areas where Norway may be able to assist us.
Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, first of all, it is my pleasure to be here and talk to you about challenges and opportunities we see in the wind industry in Estonia for coming years, as well as also in a longer perspective. But before doing that, I would like to say thank you to organizers for giving me this opportunity to be here. So my name is Aavo Kärmas. As said, I'm a CEO of Estonian Wind Association, and I'm also a CEO of Enefit Green, a renewable company in Estonia and in the Baltics. And Enefit Green is the biggest wind producer in the Baltic countries. So before talking about the future, we always need to see about what has happened in the past. So here is a graph what shows you electricity production, demand, and renewable energy production in Estonia for last 5 years. As you can see, up to 2019, Estonia produced more energy than it consumed, so we were a net exporter. But what happened in 2019 was really a sharp decline in our energy production, which continued also in 2020. And the reason is very simple. Most of our energy produced in Estonia is based on oil shale, fossil energy source. And changes in the energy market, as well as a decline in increase in the CO2 prices, has actually led to phase out of fossil energy production in Estonia. And as of beginning of 2019, Estonia has become a net importer of energy. At the same time, Estonian government has approved our National Climate and Energy Plan 2040, which says that renewable energy, share of renewable energy should be 42% of a total consumption, and renewable electricity production should be 40% respectively. Last year, renewable energy production was slightly above 20% of total consumption. So that means a significant contribution in renewables years to come. On the next slide, I will go more into details, and just to show you the share of renewable energy sources in Estonia. On the graph on your left, you can see that still most of our renewable electricity produced in Estonia is coming from biomass. Wind production has been quite stable over the last years. It has been, going up, going down, just because of different wind years in Estonia. And I'm really sorry to say that 2013 was the last year when a new wind park latest wind park in Estonia was commissioned. And why it is so? There are a couple of reasons. First of all, more than 10 years ago, Estonia introduced a feed-in premium support scheme, which was capped to 600 gigawatt hours per year. So as you can see from a graph, we've been slightly over 600 in different years. So it was quite comfortable situation for maybe the companies not to develop further. And the second reason are military restrictions, as Estonia is a NATO country bordering to Russia, so we had a lot of issues with radars and as well as environmental restrictions. But those have been passed. As you probably have heard, the Estonian government has decided to invest into 2 new radars in Estonia, which will actually release most of our onshore wind capacity in Estonia. And if we're looking now the growth of renewables and where it should come from, you can see that wind energy is actually the biggest contributor into our national climate plans. By 2030, moderate growth shows that the wind production should be 2.6 terawatt hours per year. So this is slightly over 3 times compared to last year. But we as a wind association, we even see the potential being even bigger, reaching up to 3.5 terawatt hours by 2030. That, of course, would mean that at least by 2030 there will be at least one offshore wind park in operations in Estonian sea waters. Currently, Estonian government is conducting our sea planning, which is undergoing. So currently there will be, or actually going on final public hearing, and we hope that it will be approved sometime next year. But still, there are already some offshore projects which are going through a planning process and different studies. Those are marked with green and blue on a map. And in addition, you can see striped areas with black. Those are the sea areas which are foreseen for sea development, offshore developments in Estonia for the future. And then last but not least, there is a very interesting detail to mention is that you can see a striped red area in the Latvian sea waters, very close to Estonian sea border. This is an area from Latvian side which is already has foreseen sea development, offshore development from a Latvian side, which would give a really good opportunity to develop a hybrid or cross-border wind offshore project together with Latvians. So just not stop here for a long time, but here is just a breakdown of current wind offshore developments in Estonia. As said before, 4 projects are currently conducting different studies with a total capacity of 3,000 megawatts, and there are another projects to come with total capacity around 9,000 megawatts. So all in all, currently are around 12 megawatt of offshore wind projects in Estonia. So as you can see, that those projects are really taking a long time. Some of them have been already in a process even more than 10 years. But what I'm really happy to see is that new projects are coming, and there is really interest from private sector to invest into offshore wind. And according to our national plans, the total capacity what can be commissioned in Estonia may be around 7,000 megawatts. So as we currently have 0, so there is a really good opportunity to go from 0 to 7,000. But in order to do that, there are a lot of challenges and opportunities I would like to elaborate. So first thing is a grid connection capacity and then development both for offshore and onshore. So it is not clear yet that what will be a design of offshore grid connection, how many parks and how can be connected into that. So we know that our TSO is currently working on their plans. And then second thing is strengthening our onshore network. So currently our network can stand up to additional 1,000 megawatts of capacity, but if we will use all the potential from offshore, it certainly needs to be strengthened as well. So I already mentioned the cross-border projects, so that offshore wind certainly creates a lot of opportunities to do projects together with our neighbors. And it also needs a streamlining of our regulatory and national policies in all our countries. But last but not least, to mention here is that as offshore wind projects are really long-term, they are huge, we need a lot of know-how, we need a lot of capacity, both in financial capacity as well as technical know-how. So I do see that the coming years will offer a lot of opportunities for Estonia together with Norway to share our knowledges and develop offshore wind in Estonia together. So, as you see, there are a lot of challenges, but there are always opportunities, and I'm really sure that offshore wind will have a major growth in the future. So, thank you very much, and wish you a nice conference.
Thank you very much, Aavo, Kärmas. Once again, I will thank all participants, and now we will have a little break here for about 5 minutes in our discussions. You'll see video presentations here, and afterwards we'll continue with a panel discussion between Estonian and Norwegian entrepreneurs.
Anyone can change the world. Estonians have always been striving for innovation in technology and our way of life. Our digital infrastructure and our citizens' readiness to use new technology is your chance to test new products and services more effectively and receive faster feedback. Innovation and change is the end result of all true learning and education. Think of Estonia's smart business ecosystem as a test bed for your next innovation.
Each one of us has 24 hours a day. What matters is how we use them. In Estonia, we've created a business environment that lets you thrive, where you can focus on getting things done, where you can realize ideas that make a difference.
Welcome back to our webinar on wind energy development in Estonia. Now we will hear from Estonian and Norwegian entrepreneurs on how we can go green together. First, Estonian entrepreneurs and their presentations. Let's give the stage to Saare Wind Energy first, then Utilitas, and finally Port of Tallinn. Please.
Thank you. Good morning. It's very nice to be here and speak about one of the offshore wind development in Estonia, near Saaremaa. My name is Guido Kartau, and I go shortly through our project. The location is in eastern side of the Baltic, which is an excellent site if we think where the weather and wind is created, from North Baltic over North Sea to Baltic Sea. And for project development side, we see that we follow the megatrends, the Green Deal, climate change, and all strategies behind that. And I think in Estonia we don't have any questions about whether or not. Of course, yes, we need offshore wind farms. Where? The answer is also in Marine Spatial Plan. The question is how. And that's what we are focusing in our project and in Estonia. The plan is to have up to 100 wind turbines and total power of 1.4 gigawatt. We started 2015, but we are still in early development stage. We started as a some-man company, very small utility company. Last year, a Dutch company, Van Oord, joined the company, and now we are much bigger. But we are still not ready, and as the company and the project is developing, the company is developing. One day we need operator, energy company, finance, stakeholders, maybe from Norway in today's context. And the earliest day we hope we can produce electricity is already 2028. I know this is very optimistic schedule. After Van Oord is joining the company, we have excellent know-how, the real know-how, how to construct and how to cover all the balance of plant, from foundations to cables. And I would like to focus on the two of the main issues when developing an offshore wind farm. First is site selection. And it's starting from, you must do first step in the right direction. Otherwise, it's very hard to get in good result. The site selection was made in 2015 when Saare Wind Energy applied for a certain territory. And in that time, we looked for distance from coast, no fishing areas, no military conflicts, no birds, bats, and things like that. And of course, good wind. And we see that today, Marine Spatial Plan, that Saare Wind Energy location is exactly in the middle of the good selected territory by planning. So we are in the right place. And other important thing is cooperation. Developer cannot do offshore wind farm alone. We need cooperation with many partners, stakeholders. And in Saare Wind Energy, we look for win-win solutions. And instead of NIMBY, we need YIMBY. Not in my backyard, should change to yes in my backyard. And this is this win-win. It's of course in every level, from global climate change to very local things. But if you're already developing a concrete offshore wind farm, then you must go local. And we say that the wind in offshore wind farm should blow benefit also for locals, for saarlastele or for people of Saaremaa. And there are, of course, a number of good things how we can cooperate and find solutions. from better infrastructure, from more jobs in maintenance and service ports, just simple financial support and things like that. And we should think more options. It's not only one tool to use. And for short presentation, I finish here. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here today to share my thoughts in regard to offshore wind sector development in Estonia and in this region. My name is Rene Tammist, and I'm a development manager at Utilitas. Firstly, a few words about Utilitas, as the company is mostly known in Estonia. It's a district heating company so far, and is providing district heating and soon also district cooling services in 8 cities. So every 5th Estonian receives its heat services from Utilitas. Also, one fact about Utilitas is that Utilitas is the largest renewable energy producer in Estonia, putting together heat and electricity production, and we have 3 CHP cogeneration plants in Tallinn. So altogether with 58 megawatts electrical capacity. But my role in this company has been to develop wind, solar and storage solutions since more than a year already. And a few words about how we are progressing. So our focus is entire Baltic region, and so we have taken the look at mostly on wind sector, but also on solar projects. And a month ago, we were happy to announce that we were starting construction of onshore wind farm in Latvia. Currently, the development of wind sector in Latvia and Estonia in recent years has not been very active. We hope to change that, as there is quite a lot of potential in all 3 Baltic states. Also a few words about offshore, where we are at the moment. Utilitas has applied for applications in Estonian territorial waters in the Gulf of Riga and west coast of Saaremaa. All together we have 7 applications submitted, each containing from 127 up to almost 300 potential turbine locations. To what extent it is possible actually construct these wind turbines and parks remains to be seen, as we are at the moment at very early stage of development. We are still in the consultation processes with state authorities, but hopefully we are soon reaching to the stage where we can commence with respective environmental and other studies. Altogether, there's lots of potential, but to what extent it is possible to realize this potential remains to be seen. We are hopeful that at the end of this decade it is possible to start constructing at least one of these applications, one of these wind farms. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Hello everybody, it's nice to be here. My name is Margus Vihma, I'm representing the biggest port authority of Estonia. I'd like to present to you the value proposition for offshore wind park developer. Port of Tallinn is a listed company, public company, but we still have 67% of our shares owned by Estonian government. 33% is freely traded on the Tallinn Nasdaq stock exchange. Why are we unique is we have a good geographical position. You can reach almost 480 million people in 72 hours from our ports. We have very good natural conditions, well-developed infrastructure, highest quality and environmental concerns. We have European service standards, free zone and very unusual also land availability in our ports. Don't let the name fool you. We actually operate all over Estonia and we have 4 ports in Estonia. All of our ports are very well connected with the regular cargo or container lines from most of the biggest ports in Europe. Also, we are very well connected with railway and currently, if you know, Estonia is covered by the Russian Gorge railway, but by 2026 most of our ports will be also connected with the European railway gauge. Going to the harbors, our biggest cargo harbor, Muuga, is about 567 hectares. We have the biggest depth of 18 meters and we can accommodate as big ships as they can get. We have had cable ships that are over 400 meters long. Also, we have the industrial park, so the land availability, 67 hectares of the prime land that you can build on and 64 hectares of developing land. Another port that I would like to show you today is Paldiski South Harbor, which is about 129 hectares. The biggest depth is 15.5 meters and we can accommodate ships that are more than 230 meters long. Also, we have the industrial park areas which are more than 30 hectares in territory and well connected to the port with the highways. And then we have a small Saaremaa island port which can be used as the servicing center for the wind parks. Now, value proposition. If you look at the map, then our ports are in the middle of the area where 100 billion will be invested into the wind farms in the near future. So this is the possibility of getting part of that business. If you look at the infrastructure, the situation is totally different. The closest port that can accommodate ships that can service or build wind farms is in Danish waters, quite a long way from the Baltic Sea or the Swedish borders or Finnish borders or Estonian borders. So our value proposition is that we are ready to build and invest into the new infrastructure, mainly building a new quay in Paldiski with the back quay area about 10 hectares. And this will be a custom made for anybody who would like to develop wind farms in our area. Also, we have all the traditional port services available in Paldiski, starting from the good connections with the railway, good connections with the highway. Also, the Tallinn airport is not far away. And we also have the stevedores that are specializing on high and heavy equipment. Also, additional possible offshore wind construction services are available, so you can get construction materials, professional diving services, offshore foundation constructions, etc., etc. And finally, we have even managed to work with the local society on education and training. So there could be ship repair or offshore training, things done in Paldiski. And this is the layout of the new quay that we are ready to build as up. Also, we have the smaller Saaremaa port, which can be then infrastructure for the offshore wind farm operation and maintenance. And this is the picture of that. Plus, also we have we own the multifunctional icebreaker, which is wintertime servicing ports of Estonia for the ice, but in the summertime could be used for building the offshore wind farms. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for the Estonian presentations. Now we turn to our guests from Norway and their short presentations. Let's hear from 4 companies: Equinor, Kongstein, Tampnet, and Origo Solutions.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be with you today. I'm just sorry it couldn't be in person. My name is Hannah-Mary Goodlad, and I work for Equinor. I head up the Baltic Sea area development within the renewable part of our company. So this is a great event for me to be present and speaking at. In terms of my background, I'm from Scotland, and I have spent my working career within renewables within Equinor, mostly in operations. So I've been able to see what it really takes at the sharp end of our business in terms of keeping those turbines spinning in a safe and profitable manner. A really excellent place to have as a learning ground is operations. In terms of our context of the globe, we really are on the cusp and the precipice of an energy transition, an energy revolution really, that's going to completely radicalize the way in which we demand, in which we distribute, and in which we create energy. And for Equinor, this is an opportunity for us. We have always been an innovator. We have innovation in our DNA, and we see this next phase of the energy industry's journey as a real opportunity for us to play to our strengths. For us in Equinor, it's not about oil and gas or renewables. They are connected and they are interconnected. We use our people, we use our technology, we use our capital and our competence from oil and gas and transfer that to our renewables side of the business. So in terms of our renewable ambition, what do we have? We have a value-driven strategy for 2 main types of renewables. Offshore wind, leveraging our oil and gas competence, our understanding of doing big projects at scale offshore, and our onshore renewable portfolio. We know that the energy transition is not going to be a one technology, one horse race. And so for us, we've seen it wise to invest within offshore wind, within solar, and potentially onshore wind as well. But we will not grow everywhere and at scale. We will do this specifically in main clusters. And we've identified 3 main clusters for now. The North Sea, our home ground, the US East Coast, and the Baltic Sea. And the Baltic Sea is the region that I head up in terms of the development of this, and that's the region that is of most interest to the people on this call today. Poland is our cornerstone of the Baltic Sea. We have 3 offshore wind assets in development there, Baltic 1, Baltic 2, and Baltic 3. And recently we were awarded a contract for difference for Baltic 2 and 3. Activity in Poland has also stepped up in the last week and the last month. Last week we announced that our offshore wind operations base would be at the port of Leba. And also last month we announced the onshore acquisition of Wento, which is the 1.6 gigawatt solar company. So a lot going on in Poland. It is our foundation and our cornerstone for Baltic Sea build, by which we will build up and out from. The last slide that I want to show is questioned: will the Baltic Sea set the pace for broad energy growth? I think the Baltic Sea is a very interesting and exciting place. It's where policy, energy, and economics meet. And I think that sets a very interesting backdrop for energy companies like Equinor. There is the greening agenda from the West, from the EU, and there's also the pressure to decrease the reliance on Eastern Russian gas. And that sets a very interesting dynamic for energy and the energy picture. Broad energy is going to be needed within the Baltic Sea. We're going to need an integrated plethora, kind of pick and mix of solutions and commodities. I have just highlighted a couple of the things that I find most interesting. Combined wind and gas, down at the bottom left. You know, as renewables penetrate the grid here, we're going to need a diversity of product to balance out the intermittency. Top left, energy islands and green hydrogen. This is a very interesting concept, and the Baltic Sea has the perfect conditions for this. The distance between the countries, some naturally occurring islands like Bornholm Energy Island, potentially in Denmark, and green hydrogen using the existing infrastructure that is in place. And then thirdly, on the right-hand side, the hybrid projects. The distance between the countries, I've said, is interesting, but also there is this potential for being able to access multiple markets at one time from one project. So the Baltic Sea is an exciting and interesting place to be. I think in terms of offshore wind, it has great potential and future in front of it. But what we need to see now from the governments across the Baltics is predictability and stability when it comes to moving and setting the pace for this growth forward. That's what companies like Equinor are asking for and wanting to see. I will stop there and thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion with my fellow panelists.
Thank you very much to the organizers for the opportunity to talk about offshore wind in Estonia. I'm Eric, a trained business economist. I began my career in the corporate development and mergers and acquisition department in Vattenfall, a Swedish utility company leading in offshore wind farm development and operation. I gained years of operational experience during this period in my position as installation logistics manager for an offshore wind farm. And today, I'm managing director in Kongstein. Kongstein, we enable the green shift in the energy industry, is our claim. But who is Kongstein? Kongstein is a privately owned maritime consultancy company founded in 2016. It is one of the first Norwegian companies dedicated to the offshore renewable industries. Our shareholders are seasoned managers and naval engineers from Norway, Germany, and the Netherlands, with a broad network within the industry, within the different industries, meaning offshore wind, shipbuilding, and oil and gas. As of today, Kongstein has offices in Norway, Germany, and the Netherlands, and through a local corporation, we are represented in Poland as well. Kongstein specializes in consulting for offshore wind, and especially in transport and installation matters, in the green hydrogen, where we focus on the maritime hydrogen transportation means, on the maritime logistics, mainly in installation and operation and maintenance concept development, and in offshore grid related to heavy lift operations. Our clients are and has been always the offshore wind farm developers, OEMs, meaning turbine manufacturers and grid operators. That is where we started our company with. And today we also help companies to enter the offshore wind market, understanding the industry requirements and interfaces, especially the maritime interfaces. That is what you can see on the horizontal bar. We start our services early in the value chain, meaning with tailored market insights, project management from the early tender stage, writing tender documentations to decommissioning of projects. We support the asset and risk management and provide technical concepts and analysis. But last but not least, we are represented in national and international industry clusters to form partnerships and to stay tuned on the latest industry developments. We are also founding member of Aquaventus, a worldwide flagship initiative to install 10 gigawatt of offshore wind capacity for the purpose of hydrogen production around the German island of Helgoland. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to the discussion with the panelists.
Hello, my name is Tom Løver. I'm heading the offshore wind activities in Tampnet. Tampnet is a connectivity operator. We provide fiber connectivity and mobile connectivity to the offshore industry. We have done that for 20 years with our home market in the North Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. In total, we operate 4,500 kilometers of subsea fiber cables, and we have, mobile connectivity, LTE access on the offshore oil fields and wind farms in these areas. I will not spend too much time on the history because I think the future is much more interesting. And what we do is we build asset coverage, we build area coverage, and the whole reason for that is that we want to connect people and the things and enable digitalization. This is this is our mission when we work offshore. Coming from the oil and gas industry, entering into the wind farm industry, it's a kind of a journey, and we see that the wind farm industry, to a large extent, is more remotely operated. It's more standardized, and it's less people out there than we're used to from the oil and gas. That put significant requirements on reliable connectivity to actually be able to operate the wind farms remotely, to secure people when they are out there working, and to support the people out there. From a solid base in the North Sea, and you can see from the map the areas where we operate. You see the bubbles in the middle, which is our mobile coverage. And we go from there, and we want to go into the Baltic Sea. And if you look at the Baltic Sea as a whole and the wind farm ambitions in the Baltic Sea, it's for sure an interesting market for an operator like Tampnet. We want to connect the wind farms, we want to connect the companies working out there, not only the wind farm operators, but all the service companies, all the technology providers, the software and solutions providers, the maintenance operators, the turbine manufacturers, etc. And they work across the wind farms. And I think that connectivity and collaboration between all these wind farms is a key instrument to reduce the operational cost for the wind farms in the future. And it all boils down to how cheap can we produce a megawatt on an offshore wind farm. How can we scale it? How can we make the operations as efficient and secure as possible? And with the experience that we have from our offshore oil and gas, I'll just show you a couple of examples on how we work in this market. The light green area in the middle of the bubbles there is a Hornsea 1 wind farm. It's in our coverage. We built more capacity, improved the coverage on that wind farm to support the operations, to support the installations and construction during that period. And the feedback from the developer is very clear. They saved significant amounts of money just by being able to collaborate, to be able to connect people more efficiently, to reduce number of people on board the vessels because some people could stay onshore instead of offshore, etc., etc. And it was, say, lower the cost level both during the construction phase and during the operational phase. Putting on the IoT, connecting the sensors, controlling the sensors, capturing data will enable us to give further efficiency into this market in cooperation with software providers, solution providers, etc. Another example is a Gemini wind farm in the Dutch waters, where we expand our coverage to include the area of the Gemini wind farm. And we connected also to the port in Emshaven, so we can provide a seamless connectivity for the support vessels, for the people working there. So that's how we approach the market. That's how we want to enter into the Baltic. And I'm happy to discuss also more during the panel discussion. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and thank you for the invitation. Unfortunately, we could not be present this year. However, we are delighted to be able to participate in a digital manner. My name is Carl Thorøsthus, and I am the CTO and Head of Technology Management in Origo Solutions. For those of you who don't know Origo Solutions, we are a Norwegian-based company with more than 40 years of experience in the safety and automation industry. And we are currently around 60 employees and growing. So the future looks quite bright at the moment. That's good. Origo Solutions is a system integrator delivering safety and automation systems for a wide range of markets and industries. Our main markets have been oil and gas, both on and offshore, and land-based industries. But in the later years, our focus has been towards blue and green markets, both aquamarine and other markets. But a special focus has been paid to the renewable energy production, and then in particular offshore wind. Origo does also see data and data management, or if you like, digitalization, as a valuable factor which will be important in pursuing cost-efficient, smart and intelligent solutions for the future. Hence, we have established the Origo Data Hub, which you can see on the top right corner. So we are actually collecting data and structuring data and prepare them for further applications and services. Our deliveries to the offshore wind installations contains, among others, the SCADA for the Hywind Scotland facility. And we have just announced, and we are rather proud of that we are going to deliver the common SCADA system to Equinor in UK, which includes data collection and presentation of several wind power plants in the UK. That includes Dogger Bank A, B, and C, and they will all data will be collected, and from all assets, and all data will be presented in one centralized control room. There are also a potential of future wind parks to be included in that. That is a really exciting project to be part of, and we are really looking forward to that kicking off. Origo Solutions has developed the SCADA Plus system platform. It is a system platform where we take a holistic approach to collect data from multiple first-level SCADA systems, data sources, and support systems, bringing it all together to give the operators a better situational awareness as all data is presented in one system. As you can see in the top right corner, we have illustrated that with where you have multiple subsystems bringing data to the operator. The operator needs to focus on different screens, different systems. We are merging that together into one system so that the operator can easily get an overview over the plant itself and do what is necessary to control it in a safe and secure way. The SCADA system platform and its data hub enables future possibilities to add applications, services, which again will lead to smart and intelligent operations. And an added value could be, for instance, increased production, less wear and tear based on predictive maintenance algorithms, and more efficient planning and logistics. Where you get it all integrated, we believe that there is a great potential for the owners to get more value out of each euro spent. So digitalization is, from our point of view, very important when you are developing this future offshore wind industry. And we find that very, very important. So thank you all for the invitation. And again, thank you for the attention. And if you have further questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. We will help you in every way we can. And we are now looking forward to some interesting discussions in the panel discussions. Thank you.
Thank you all for the introductions and overviews of your companies. And besides our Estonian speakers, let's now welcome to our studio the Norwegian speakers. And let's continue with our panel discussion. But first, I would like to tell you an interesting fact what I read in today's New York Times. Europe can be really proud about the wind energy production already. Europe has 5,400 wind turbines in our coastlines, and the United States, can you believe, has only 7 for the whole country. So the Biden administration really has a big task in their hands to develop this energy field. But in Europe, this has been going on pretty well, says the New York Times. But how to continue on that realm? How can our Estonian companies work together well with Norwegian companies? My first question is, when we're talking about joint ventures, who is approaching who? Estonian side or Norwegian side? Who wants to start?
I can maybe kick things off from the Equinor side. I think that when we're looking out to the eastern part of the Baltic Sea, it's clear that international companies are welcome, but that there is a need to be partnering with a strong local incumbent. It makes business sense, it makes local content sense. And from our perspective, we are in the early stages of looking towards who could be potential partners within these regions. There's a long journey ahead for many people, but I think that for many companies, it makes sense to have strong, good international and local partnerships that bring an element of collaboration and really good commercial sense to the table. Looking for partners that are commercially compatible with ourselves, that bring something that we're looking for, and vice versa. That has to be the foundation of any good joint venture.
So, Kongstein, next, please. Your view of the joint ventures.
Yes, maybe a view from the practical life. As stated in the company presentations, we are a Norwegian consultancy company that was established 2016, and we expanded to Germany. So meaning there's a first cooperation and change of information that we had cross industries, knowing the having experience from the oil and gas and the offshore wind industries. And we are now expanding even to Poland, where we have started with our cooperation partner, so a local partner that we are really happy to share and provide knowledge of. There will be a global race of resources within the renewable industry and competences, of course, that we see. So there's it's very vital to share the knowledge and use the available resources that we have. COVID is not only negative, but also positive in the sense that collaboration can be done also remotely.
Okay, let's continue with Port of Tallinn. Your opinion?
Yes, I have to agree with the persons that were talking earlier. I would just like to add that maybe the cooperation doesn't have to be only in Estonia. We are actually looking for somebody who would be helping us to build wind parks, or our port could be a base for building the wind parks all over Baltic Sea. In Sweden, in Finland, in Latvia, and Lithuania, why not even in Poland?
Okay, please.
Indeed, I can only agree with the previous speakers that such large projects are inevitably joint ventures, in a sense that there's a need to involve lots of competencies, expertise from various angles, and definitely I think this is the way forward. When it comes to Utilitas, then we have been approached also by several large players on the market, but at this stage we are still at a very early phase with our developments, and when we reach to the level where we are going to look for the partners, then definitely such cooperation is most welcome.
Let's go back now to Norway. Origo.
Yeah, we as a company see that when you are developing a new industry like the offshore wind industry, it's absolutely vital to look into collaboration and share knowledge, and as Tampnet just said, also try to make some kind of standardization. Silos does not function well, I think, when you are developing new technologies and cost-efficient solutions. So who is approaching who? I think the operators and the developers of new big projects need to early address where you could gain benefits of collaboration. And we are, of course, only one part in the supply chain, but we are fully aware of our role in that collaboration. So we intend to collaborate wherever we go, both nationally and internationally. We think that is of vital importance.
And finally, Tampnet from Norway, your opinion about joint ventures?
Yeah, I think that coming from the telecom industry, I think we are used to not necessarily joint ventures, but at least a lot of cooperation across companies, across borders. And the most typical example is how mobile operators around the world cooperate and actually enable you to connect to a mobile network wherever you are. What we see in the wind farm industry is, to some extent, more standardization of the technology, but also a kind of a silo approach when it comes to the connectivity and, telecom solutions. So I think we should look into how can the telecom operator contribute to collaboration, across companies, across wind farms, and build a common infrastructure for that industry. Then primarily in partnership with also the local operators, which is an important part due to regulatory issues, etc.
And final thought about joint ventures from Estonia, Saare Wind.
Thank you. Yeah, in Saare Wind Energy, we already have cooperation. We have 70% shares in Estonia and 30% in Van Oord in Netherlands. And of course, Van Oord knows all big players in the world in this field. And in the future, we're just developing the cooperation. And Norway is a well-known country for Estonians and other Dutch people.
So the cooperation will be happening. But Hanna, I have a question specifically for you. Could you share your ideas about maritime coexistence and the multi-use of the Baltic Sea we have?
Yes, thank you. And a great question. I believe that in the next 5, 10, 15 years as we go forward with offshore wind development, coexistence and multi-use is going to become absolutely a need to have, as opposed to historically a nice to have. We need to be better, smarter and more efficient at using our sea space than we have done our land space in the past. Many of our food production is going to come from the sea space. Most of our energy production will come from the sea space as well in the next few decades. So we need to find a better solution to integrate those different types of technologies, different industries smarter together. And practically, I'm talking about how can we use fishing techniques that are enabling us to be inside a wind farm? How can we look at aquaculture and mariculture and see that the space within a wind farm can be put to use? These are not easy solutions. These are not solutions that are going to be developed overnight, but I really do believe that this is a direction of travel that the offshore wind industry needs to go in. Because there is a lot of sea space, but we do need to be smarter, especially in areas such as the Baltic Sea, which is more defined and confined than perhaps the North Sea or the Atlantic Ocean. Let's find smart ways of integrating and working and collaborating alongside each other across industries.
Thank you. Question to Tallinn Sadam, Port of Tallinn. Offshore wind ports in Europe, is Estonia prepared to service the whole value chain of potential offshore wind parks?
Thank you. Yes, sure, we are. And as I showed in my presentation, at the moment there is a lack of infrastructure in our area. So we are really ready to offer that and to have the real starting point for the offshore wind park building in one of our ports.
Great. Let's go back to Norway. Tampnet. Tom, you mentioned already the importance of telecommunications in offshore wind production. Could you elaborate on that topic a little more?
Yeah, what we see is, I mean, Tampnet has been in the offshore industry for the last 20 years. We have a 20-year anniversary this year. Started with, the oil and gas industry, have moved from the Norwegian sector of the North Sea into the whole North Sea, moved into the Gulf of Mexico, and we are now looking at the Baltics. In bottom of that expansion, it has always been a standardization of technology and connecting people, assets, and now also all the things as part of the digitalization that we see around us. So what we see is a standardization of that and connecting vessels, people, and things across wind farms, across the offshore areas, connecting them to the port. We have a project now with the Gemini offshore wind farm where we build seamless connectivity from the port to the wind farm, because those people and the vessels operating in that area, they are depending on a seamless connectivity, not changing from one proprietary connectivity service out there to a different connectivity service, during the travel, and to a third one when they come to the port. So when I mentioned that, yes, we want to cooperate with local companies, the port is an important part of that cooperation, to build connectivity in the port as part of the whole, connectivity ecosystem for the offshore industry.
A question to Utilitas. What needs to be done on the EU level and by the Estonian government to benefit the most from the green transition onshore and offshore wind value chain?
Well, there's a definitely long list of things that needs to be addressed. Well, what investors mostly are looking for is the certainty of the investment climate. And this is a multifaceted task or challenge. What we are definitely looking for is first good cooperation with state authorities. First and foremost, that the planning process is licensing would go smoothly and would advance according to the rules and expectations that are set at the EU level. Also, what we are now looking forward to is the increase in ambition at the EU level. Fit for 55 is something we are looking for forward, and we are hoping that this would only strengthen the regulatory framework, especially. We are interested also in different potential financing mechanisms. There are in the Renewable Energy Directive cooperation mechanisms that could serve as beneficial for developers as my company, but also in the governance regulation EU renewable energy financing mechanism. So we hope that these mechanisms can be improved and even strengthened with the help of European Commission. So there's a lot that can be done in order to improve the framework and make things smoother for developers, but also other stakeholders that are involved in this process.
The next question goes to Karl Thor from Origo Solutions. What are your thoughts on system solutions for monitoring and management of offshore wind operations?
We believe that one key factor to succeed in the development of this new industry is the word, as also as Tom in Tampnet mentioned, digitalization. To have a strong communication backbone, as Tampnet was talking about, is very important. And on top of that, you need to, when you collect the data, and you do not only operate on it directly as a normal control and automation system, but if you collect data, you can create information, you could learn from it, and you could actually also start to enhance predictions for both production and predictive maintenance operations, again as mentioned previous in our presentation. And I think that it will be beneficial to the goal of pursuing cost-efficient long-time operations throughout the life cycle of the wind power plant. So for us, we look at digitalization and control automation as a whole, and not only as an on-off system, but that is the daily work, but you have to integrate it with other kind of support systems like planning systems, logistics systems, ports, storage. If you could manage to develop that as a whole, you will have a very cost-efficient, smart and intelligent way of running your power plants.
Let's bring the discussion back to Estonia, Saare Wind Energy. How to develop this kind of whole solution, what we just heard about?
Yeah, I think in Estonia we don't have to think too much anymore. Actually, we should copy everything is done already. The learning curve is so far right now that and smart solutions exist already. That's sad to say, but let's copy good solutions and adjust it to it in our conditions and environment.
And question to Kongstein, let's go back to Norway. How can the maritime offshore expertise from oil and gas industry benefit the new offshore wind industry?
Yes, this of course has been from the very beginning in the offshore wind industry, where I have been taking part of. Was always the question whether oil and gas industry can help out. I think it's now the time. Now there's focus on building and constructing offshore renewables. There will, of course, be the need for transfer of knowledge. And this is something that we also plan. We are not a system integrator in terms of technology, but we are rather a human system integrator, serving and bringing cross-industry knowledge into the offshore wind and hydrogen market. And I think this is very vital to be open, and that's what I hear from the panelists as well. So learn from what others have learned for and use it for the local requirements and the local environment.
And Erik from Kongstein has a question, as I see here on my screen, for our Estonian participants. How can Estonian industry benefit long-term from offshore wind projects, in your opinion? Let's take now from the short-term perspective, the long-term perspective for Estonian industry. Saare.
Yeah, of course, offshore wind farm is not just electricity production unit. It is much, much more. And one important thing that Estonia has been a marine nation for thousands of years already. And offshore wind is something new, and we can't catch whales anymore, and even fishes are less. It's something, offshore wind is a new business at sea, new activity at sea, and it's having connections to very many onshore activities also. So that's the, in general, answer.
Let's go to Utilitas.
Yes, very good question. So we think that offshore wind industry represents a good challenge from one hand, but also an opportunity for the Estonian industry, and we of course would like to involve our local partners as much as possible. Of course, it's a rather international project from the other hand, but I think there's many opportunities here that were already mentioned by Guido in regard to maritime sector, but also manufacturing of certain components, be it foundations, piling solutions in cooperation with international partners. But also developing their servicing platforms, and not only already hydrogen was mentioned, and Utilitas is definitely looking into this opportunity and trying to figure it out, the ways to enter into this market as well, as offshore wind sector represents a good opportunity here as well. So developing hydrogen production capabilities, finding suitable markets, but also looking for different opportunities, how to convert the hydrogen into other products, and also how to actually develop some novel solutions in terms of technology and other means. So I'm very hopeful that this represents a very good opportunity for our industry as well.
And Port of Tallinn, how can the new wind energy benefit our economy in Estonia and in Europe as a whole in long term?
I can just summarize what Guido and René have said, that in the short term, of course, it's a question of maritime industry, but also regional development. But in the long run, this can be a real catalyzer for the Estonian economy and bringing on new export growth and growing the economy.
And let's go back to Norway. A question that one of our viewers is asking, do we need to worry about where the extra electricity flow is going when all those wind parks will be up and running here at our coastlines? Maybe Hanna, you can elaborate on that topic.
It's not my area of expertise, but I think one of the attractive things about the Baltic Sea and the Baltic states is actually the potential for cross-border projects and hybrid projects. So I don't see it as a disadvantage at all. You know, access to several markets is attractive, and being able to export your product and your electricity to several different home countries is definitely an upside. And one of the things that is so unique about the Baltic Sea is the distance between the countries, which makes synergies and export opportunities very real possibility. But secondly, this historic nature, which we see in the signing of the 2020 collaboration agreement across the 8 countries for offshore wind, this historic nature of collaboration and reaching out to your neighbour. And I think that sets the Baltic Sea up for good success when it comes to offshore wind. So hybrid projects, cross-border projects, I see that as a big upside.
Tom from Tampnet, I see that you are nodding also for this question.
I think this is a little bit on the side from what we do, but I think that the energy flow, what should say, across borders is important, because it's not necessarily alignment between when you produce and when you consume, and that will be different from different areas, of the world and between European countries at least. So I think having this energy flow is quite important. And coming from Norway, we know that, I mean, we are kind of called the battery of Europe, since we have water resources and hydroelectricity. So I think the exchange of electricity is actually quite important part of the wind farm industry.
What is the view from Utilitas?
Yes, I think that there's not going to be a problem with what to do with the electricity. So there are, I think, different ways to exploit the opportunities stemming from these offshore opportunities. So first of all, we are very grateful and hopeful that the Baltic offshore sea grid development would really start off, and we would see the emergence of a grid that would be connecting different countries with different offshore opportunities to the markets where this electricity can be consumed. There are also some initiatives more locally between Estonia and Latvia in order to develop grids where to connect offshore wind park. So these are, I think, definitely good developments. On top of that, as I already mentioned, we see lots of potential also in hydrogen. So this is another field we would be really focus and in the future to benefit from these opportunities.
And we have 5 more minutes to wrap it up. And the last question, I can hear, and we can all hear, that we are our panelists all agree we are ready for these new developments in energy. What are the obstacles that has to be overcome right away to start this process as soon as possible? So let's just do a round of our panelists, and let's start from Origo Solutions.
You need to develop projects. Of course, you need to have a solid project where you also have the finances and the financial backbone to actually develop it. If subsidies are needed or other kinds of investments are needed, I cannot elaborate much on that. That is not my field. But of course, to be able to develop, you need to have a financial backbone to actually do the projects and start the process. So the financial backbone is what I think is the most important thing.
Let's bring the discussion back to Estonia. Saare Wind Energy.
Yeah, I think the most important to remember is that we are focusing on climate change. That's something we must deal and we must act fast. And I will not list all the relatively small problems we must solve. The main problem is that as Europeans, as mankind, the time is flowing faster than we are acting.
Anna from Equinor, you already kind of talked to us about the big picture, the marine coexistence. So your view, we heard about climate change, about those issues. Your view, what are the obstacles we have to overcome right away to jumpstart this process of wind energy?
So I think Equinor is obviously, we've been doing oil and gas for 50 years in the Norwegian continental shelf. And I think a lot of learnings can be taken from that industry. When I am asked this question, I automatically think about the comparison with other industries, and I think about the space race that started. We went through a period of competition, then collaboration with the International Space Station, and now we're at the phase where commercialization is kicking off with flights into space, with Tesla and Virgin competing. And I do think that the wind industry has the opportunity to hopscotch over the competition phase a bit. Competition is good. It keeps us fit. It keeps us nimble and fast. But if this industry is to succeed at the pace and the scale that my previous colleague was talking about, because of the existential climate crisis we have to find a way of speeding up past that competition space and going straight to the collaboration phase of this offshore wind race. And I think that you look at the oil and gas industry, it went through a big competition space and phase. And it was only when we had subsequent oil crashes that the industry was pushed into a corner to collaborate with one another, to find ways of bundling their services together to cut down costs. I think we need to go faster into the collaboration space and phase of this race.
Let's bring in the Port of Tallinn.
I totally agree with the speed in this matter, and we have to get things running faster and faster. I would also agree with René saying earlier that there's a long list that the government has to do, and part of that is considerably speed up the process of giving these licenses and giving everything that they can that this would happen as soon as possible.
Let's go to Kongstein.
Yeah, I can just, I agree with my predecessors, but there's also a race of resources, as I said, and expertise. So how do you want to do that to get them into your project? So there needs to be an open communication and openness to cooperate. And I think that brings projects ahead. We need to learn further and not to repeat the mistakes we have already learned in the learning curves in other countries.
Utilitas from Estonia, your thoughts?
Yes, I think that there's a missing momentum at the moment at the national level, at least in this region. We see that there's lots of stress on the renewable ambition, on climate ambition at the EU level. We see really ambitious targets being set, be it on renewables, climate or even hydrogen, but somehow this needs to be translated into concrete activities at national level and also be backed by the political will. So I think this is at the moment still somewhat absent and needs to be changed in order to really push things forward and to be able to make sure that we are on track with our ambition in terms of offshore.
And the final word goes to Tampnet. Your thoughts about the obstacles to overcome fast?
Pardon? I think that it's a key point for the industry to be aware of where are we going to compete and where are we going to cooperate. In the telecom industry, we have a long tradition for competition, and we try. It's very simple. We try to reduce the cost, which is not the differentiator between the operators, and we try to compete what is the unique values that we can offer compared to our competitors. And then we get the synergies, we get the scalability, and we get the costs down and the quality up.
Thank you very much. Very diverse views on our topic, which is the wind energy. It was interesting journey, interesting conversation into the world of wind energy. And today's event was organized by the Estonian Investment Agency, who is Norwegian Embassy in Estonia, Norwegian Energy Partners, and Estonian Wind Association. Contact information will be on your screen shortly at the end of this webinar, should you want to contact any of our speakers directly. And we hope that discussions on that topic will continue, and our panelists maybe will meet next time already in the near future here in Estonia, in Tallinn. For today, have a good and, these times most importantly, healthy early summer day. Goodbye.